You. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. One of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver, and from that time on he looked for an opportunity to hand him over. On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the disciples approached Jesus and said, "Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time draws near. In your house I shall celebrate the Passover with my disciples.'" The disciples then did as Jesus had ordered and prepared the Passover. When it was evening, he reclined at table with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "Amen, I say to you, one of you will betray me." Deeply distressed at this, they began to say to him, one after another, "Surely it is not I, Lord." He said in reply, "He who has dipped his hand into the dish with me is the one who will betray me. The Son of Man indeed goes as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would be better for that man if he had never been born." Then Judas, his betrayer, said in reply, "Surely it is not I, Rabbi." He answered, "You have said so." The Gospel of the Lord. Yeah, it's a strange little ending to this particular scene. I mean, we know that, we know, of course, that Judas is going to betray Jesus. We know that Jesus knows that Judas is going to betray him. So the little exchange, right? I think there's enough there. We can think the mind of Jesus, perhaps, that there are any number of things he wants for Judas, even in this particular moment. But I think it's quite remarkable to read that exchange, and of course Jesus's disposition towards Judas, back into the rest of the scene, back into the rest of the Passion, because it's not as though Judas's betrayal catches Jesus off guard, right? And I don't know, for those of you who have suffered anything like betrayal, it's perhaps the least pleasant thing in the world to experience. And yet here's Jesus, knowing full well what's coming his way by the hand of his friend, and participates in that meal with him, and even washes Judas's feet. Right? There's, I think what one of the things that ought to emerge for us out of the Passion narrative is Jesus as love. Right? This is when Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, just as rain falls or the sun shines on the good and the bad alike, right? So too God's disposition towards us is set and settled, and is nothing other than love. And this is what we see in Jesus, anticipating his betrayal, and yet, all the way with Judas loving him. Right? When Judas comes to betray Jesus in the garden, Jesus calls him friend. He said, "Friend, do what it is you have to do. Do what it is what you've come to do." And this really ought to be remarkable, and remarkable in a way that both gives us great hope, great joy, and remarkable in a way that I hope fills us with fear. Yeah, why would I say that? Because on the one hand, this disposition of Jesus towards his disciples is his disposition towards us. He's going to treat us with nothing other than love. He's going to love us all the way, in spite of what he knows is coming on our part, right? What has come before and what's coming. But the second part that I think is perhaps more troubling, and that could fill us with fear, is that as recipients of God's radical and generous love, we ourselves are to embody that love. So for us, even betrayal is not a place where we can stop and say, well, you know what? He betrayed me, so to hell with him, right? I'm not interested. Now, I'm not saying that, reconciliation is near at hand for people who betray us. Love is a must. This is the commandment that Jesus issues to his disciples, right? That they're to love one another. And we see even into the early church, it's love that is the distinguishing characteristic of Jesus's followers. So the challenge then for us is to say, and again, it's beauty and it's difficulty, because being restored as God's image bearers, our lives are to be nothing other than love as well. And no matter then what we face, and we're kind of spared the knowledge that Jesus has of the person who's going to betray him. Right, we just find ourselves kind of caught up in the mess of the whole thing. But the challenge is then for us, as God's renewed image bearers, to be such even in the most difficult places, and probably even more difficult places than we've been. We probably ought to be more active, more proactive in the cause of love. We ought to be pushing out more and more into the world's darkest places to be God's image bearers there. Of course, only by the call, right? In the sense that we have to be praying about these things a lot. We have to be praying about what's going on in our lives, what's going on in our hearts, so that God can continue to fill us with his love and can continue to send us into the world's darkest places, to bring his light to bear there. If we think we're going to set off, with our own torch into the world's darkest places, we've got another thing coming. I mean, this is, we may want to have some spiritual direction sessions before you rush, headlong into the teeth of the world's wickedness, right? We have to make sure that God is sending us there. Otherwise, we're doing it for some reason other than charity. Yeah, and this is the whole point of the narrative, right? There's greed, there's lust, there's fear, there's all of the world's wickedness is in the passion narrative. Jesus overcomes the forces of darkness in order to renew us as a people of light. But it means in order for us to be the people of light, we have to see Jesus at our head, and we have to continue to trust and follow him. And I think that perhaps if there's a lesson for today. It's to see him steadfast in love, a love that conquers all things. Now it's ours also to be steadfast in love and to not give up on love, no matter where it is we find ourselves. No matter how dark the world around us becomes, we're letting God's light shine. And also, no matter how dark the world inside us becomes, we can still hold fast to Jesus and persevere in the cause of love, no matter what it costs us. Yeah, and no matter what trials and travails await us. He has done it. He has won the victory. And now that victory can be implemented in us and through us as the love of God is again poured out for us, that we might embody him, his own life of love, and bring that love to life wherever it is he sends us.